The Morant Bay Rebellion, 1865. The Morant Bay Rebellion was an important turning point in the history of Jamaica. After an official inquiry by a royal commission, the governor was dismissed and the political constitution of Jamaica was transformed. Direct rule from London, called Crown Colony Government, was also established in its place. But what triggered the uprising? In the years following emancipation, the government was still controlled by the wealthy and powerful white class, and the peasants had no representation to speak on their behalf. This frustration them. Several other factors contributed to social and economic hardship. These included the collapse of the sugar industry, widespread unemployment, an increase in the price of imported goods caused by the American Civil War, heavy taxation and the scarcity of money, the outbreak of cholera and smallpox in the 1850s, approximately which killed approximately 50,000 people, drought, and a justice system which worked against the peasants. It was made up mostly of the managers of the estates. It was virtually impossible for the estate laborers to get justice. For years the populace had been overtaxed, yet when a recession hit the entire island of Jamaica, the government did nothing to ease the pain of the people. As the prices of imports such as food and clothing exploded, due to extraordinarily high tariffs and the loss of American suppliers and markets due to the American Civil War, the government turned a blind eye. Then, when a drought struck from 1864 to 5, the people could no longer even continue with their meager subsistence farming, which had just barely been keeping them alive, and the sugar crop was decimated, putting many more people out of work. Of a population of over 400,000, only an estimated 60,000 blacks were employed, while as many as 130,000 capable adults went jobless. It would be only a matter of time until these people became fed up with their condition and acted on their own against the authorities, who were doing nothing to improve their miserable states of being. Edward Underhill, a Baptist missionary, who had been working to help the common people, wrote a letter to the British Secretary of State for the colonies describing the extreme poverty of the people, which was proved by the ragged and even naked condition of the vast numbers of them, blacks. To make the whole situation worse, large numbers of coolies, or Asian and African indentured servants, were brought in to replace the former slaves. This was due to the belief that the servants would work harder because they had their freedom to work toward, while the ex-slaves were slothful and ungrateful for their emancipation. One planter remarked, "Work is freely offered, but not easily obtained owing to the increasing idleness of the Creoles." Underhill suggested that a survey be handed out to all the parishes on the island to establish what the true state of the people was. The result was a list of the appalling conditions under which many Jamaicans lived. As a list of their reasons for poverty and distress by a Baptist minister, Thomas Lee, shows: 1. Want of work. 2. Want of rain. 3. Want of industry. 4. Unreasonable demands in some instances as to work, and also unpunctual payment on the part of some planters. 5. High prices of, and exorbitant duties on the articles of which the poor consume. When the Underhill survey was complete, a meeting held in the colonial capital of Spanish Town adopted a resolution that deplores the present depressed state of the inhabitants of this colony, who are suffering from the injustice done to them by the legislature. In April, a humble petition of the poor people of Jamaica and the parish of St. Anne, as it was called, was sent to the Queen of England, in which the people meekly asked the Queen and the Colonial Office for some sort of relief from the heavy taxation which the colonial government was assessing them. They also asked for the Crown to lease them land at low rates so they could put our hands and heart to work and cultivate. Her response enraged the people. It stated, "The prosperity of the laboring class depends upon their working for wages, steadily and continuously, at times when their labor is wanted, and for so long as it is wanted." This blamed Jamaican blacks for their own condition. In July of 1865, Governor Eyre had 50,000 copies of this document circulated to all parts of Jamaica. It became known as the Queen's Advice. Soon the irritation of the people was visible, and certain ministers and missionaries refused to pass copies of the advice on for fear of further enraging the populace. Yet, the stage had already been set, and only a small incident was needed to turn quiet bickering amongst peasants into a massacre that would change the way the colony had been brutally run. That incident occurred on October 7, 1865, when a court session held in the eastern town of Morant Bay charged a poor black man accused of trespassing on a long-abandoned plantation. A band of blacks from the small village of Stony Gut, about 4 miles away, entered the town of Morant Bay armed with bludgeons, protesting the man's unjust detention. When one of the band was arrested, the group became unruly and attacked the police, freeing the man from custody. 2 days later, the magistrates ordered 28 people detained for questioning. Yet, when police entered the village of Stony Gut, they were surrounded by hundreds of poor blacks and handcuffed. Here Paul Bogle, one of the respected leaders of the peasants in the area, wrote a petition to the governor and declared that an outrageous assault was committed upon us by the policemen of this parish, by orders of the justice of which we were compelled to resist. The next day, October 11, as many as 500 blacks entered Morant Bay in columns, blowing horns and carrying flags. They were armed with cutlasses, sharpened sticks, and a few older guns. One man was heard chanting, "We will kill every white and mulatto man in the bay, and when we finish, we will return and go to the estates." They soon confronted a hastily put-together volunteer militia, of not more than 30 men, guarding the courthouse. Verbal bickering turned to projectile throwing until the mob actually moved in and tried to overrun the militia, at which time the order to fire was given. 7 members of the mob fell. The so-called rebellion spread to the surrounding plantations, but only lasted a few days and fewer than 100 white people would be killed. However, Governor Eyre's reaction was swift and brutal. Effects of the Morant Bay Rebellion. Hundreds of blacks, most innocent bystanders, were rounded up and executed by firing squads or hangings, most without any sort of trial. "We slathered all before us, man or woman or child," as one soldier recalled. They were strung up in the burnt-out archway of the Morant Bay courthouse as a warning to future troubleseekers. In the end, some 439 blacks were executed and over 1,000 of their homes were burnt down in retaliation. The most prominent figure to be executed was George Gordon, who was many miles away in Kingston when the whole rebellion started. The execution of a member of the Jamaican Assembly led to outrage back in England. A royal commission held an inquiry into Governor Eyre's actions. Eyre was subsequently removed and replaced by Sir Henry Storks, who presided over an inquiry into the rebellion and its aftermath. George W. Gordon was a wealthy son of a white planter and slave woman. He was elected to House of Assembly in 1865 as an advocate for the impoverished blacks in Jamaica. Prior to the rebellion, Governor Edward Eyre publicly denounced him as the most consistent and untiring obstructor of the public business in the House of Assembly. Gordon had shot back, saying of Eyre, "He is devoid of justice and humanity." A royal commission held an inquiry into Governor Eyre's actions. Eyre was subsequently removed and replaced by Sir Henry Storks, who presided over an inquiry into the rebellion and its aftermath. As a whole, Jamaica did improve somewhat under the new governor, as progress was made in the basic infrastructure of the island and the educational institutions there. There was now a fear amongst the whites that another rebellion could break out at any time, which gave the blacks a sort of bargaining tool. They would not be stepped on so easily anymore. However, it also led the British Empire to all but ban any blacks from political life, and to bring an end to the Jamaican Assembly's role as the representative government of the island. Now Jamaica would be governed directly by the Crown. This was known as Crown Colony Government. When the people were pushed to the breaking point, they rose up and rebelled against the authority. While at first glance it might appear that the whole rebellion was set off merely from one man being improperly incarcerated, if you look deeper, many deeper reasons appear. The poor government on the island under the leadership of Governor Eyre, the desperate economic conditions of the vast majority of people on the island, and the high prices of bare necessities all led to thrusting the blacks of Jamaica to the breaking point. The events in Morant Bay could have happened anywhere on the island, and only coincidence made this particular town the boiling-over point for the blacks of Jamaica. Bogle was captured and hanged on October 24, 1865, but his forceful demonstration achieved its objectives. It paved the way for the establishment of just practices in the courts, and it brought about a change in official attitude, which made possible the social and economic betterment of the people. In recognition of his efforts, Bogle was conferred with the Order of the National Hero in 1969 as per the second schedule of the National Honors and Awards Act. George William Gordon was also conferred with the Order of National Hero. Both have been honored in Jamaica in other ways. Paul Bogle High School, statue of Paul Bogle stands in front of the Morant Bay Courthouse. George William Gordon House is named after the RT. Excellent George William Gordon. Both are featured on the Jamaican $50 note.